So I bid you welcome, welcome, indeed thrice welcome to what you need is a damn good listening to with me, Chris Grimes. And I'm delighted to be able to talk today to a man who I think is nothing short of glorious, Mr. Dave Stewart from the Fresh Air Leadership Company.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're very welcome, Dave. And just talk me through your background. It's just beautiful.
Okay, so I guess I'm an ex-lead guitarist in a rock band in Scotland. I was brought up in royalties.
Sorry to stop you there.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I meant your... I meant your... Deeply quick. What's your background?
Okay, so that's the Black Mount in Scotland, which is in the background there. You see part of the route of the West Highland Way from Bridge of Orchy to Glencoe, and it is glorious. And Chris, you have been walking on that track and coaching on that track.
And by the way, I love the clue in the title of the Fresh Air Leadership Company, because that is, in a nutshell, and I know we'll talk more about what you love to do, but that's what you bring, isn't it?
Yes, and it's the fresh air obviously is hints at the outdoors, but it's also about the idea of fresh thinking, fresh conversations, and fresh action. So it's really fresh is really core to what we do.
And what I really enjoyed just before we began to record this conversation, you were giving me a sort of whole plethora of different backgrounds I could choose. So we might even do a postscript film about that as well, which is great.
Fabulous, fabulous.
So we met, I don't know if you remember, about 4 years ago, where I had been to the Lake District of my own volition to talk about my own, company, Second Curve. And then I'd been outdoors because a Nietzsche quote that we both shared and enjoyed before is the best ideas happen outdoors. So I'd been to do it anyway. And I don't know if you remember, but I came back and then I just happened to tune into a film you'd put on LinkedIn. And I was just feeling very sort of wistful, having just returned from the Lake District. And I pressed like on your film, thinking you were just here up in Scotland somewhere. And then unbeknown to me, you were actually about 4 miles around the corner in Bradley Stoke at that point in Bristol.
Indeed, yeah.
And I will let you talk in a moment. But then you got back to me within 40 minutes. You were, I see you're in Bristol. Would you like to meet for a coffee? So what I've been bowled over by in the time that I've known you is your innate reciprocity in the relationships that you try and build, which I'll talk about and we'll talk about later, is one of the rich gifts that I know that you bring.
And actually, it's a great point, because it really is all about connecting, isn't it? And what you and I have found is lots of people can go off and think and be on their own, but it's not until they engage in dialogue with another mind that actually new stuff begins to emerge. And actually that connection is absolutely key to what we do. And
also there's that lovely connection with me in comedy improvisational stuff, this idea of stepping into a space, which by the way, I'm going to call the clearing, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay. It's this idea of a space called a bit like yes and, where anything is possible. So bringing people into a clearing is obviously the gift of taking people outdoors.
Yes, and it's that word clearing is so rich as well, because it's about clearing people's minds of all the crap they carry around with them and giving them that sort of clarity of perspective and a bit of a direction and purpose. And that's kind of what you and I both successfully do together when we go on these jaunts.
You're not about to be attacked by a pack of dogs, are you, Dave?
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. You're not going to hear that. I thought one of these clever microphones only pick up within 5 centimeters. Sorry about that. Was the postman, must have been, and the dogs decided that they wanted to try and eat him. Sorry about that.
That's fine. So you're going to go and rescue the postman's leg from your dog's mouth shortly. Fantastic.
But that's been the reality of Zoom, isn't it? Never mind the outdoors for a minute. It's actually we get to look into each other's lives in a way that we've not been able to do at work previously.
Yeah. What we might tease you with is reveal your real background towards the end of this call.
I'm actually in the toilet. No, I'm not. I'm okay.
You've got a whole stack of dead postmen lined up behind you. So anyway, we're going to be shaping this around something called What You Need Is a Damn Good Listening To. So my aim is, as a gift to you, to amplify the personality, the voice, the brand, if you like, of the Fresh Air Leadership Company, and you particularly as the MD of that glorious entity. So what I'd like to do is talk about, first of all, something called the clearing. It's a space where I'd like you to describe, where do you go to get clutter-free, where you can innovate and just think. And in my world, because of my comedy improvisational experience, my empty space, as I've intimated already, is like a comedy improvisational theatre in the round yes and space. And for me, it's like a circus arena that's warmly lit with straw lighting. There's a the audience don't need to be there, but it's in a sort of dimly lit space, and I can sort of step into the light and innovate with yes and there's this idea of anything is possible. So that's my clearing. What is your clearing, Dave?
I've got two. I'm going to insist on having two. One obviously is going outdoors and being surrounded by just awesome landscape, and that just allows, I guess, a lot of the stuff that's in the head to just fall away, and then the important stuff to stay. But the other place, which perhaps counterintuitively I would call my clearing, is in conversations with other people, because I'm a real proponent of dialogue, in that the minute I engage with someone else, then new stuff begins to emerge, stuff that maybe was already there and just needed to be uncovered, or new stuff is created in that conversation. So it's about the space between the noses, you and me. We're going to create new stuff.
And again, there's such a connection in the love of comedy improvisation and table tennis, by the way, the ping pong of conversation. Apart from anything else, I haven't done this to you yet, but I could probably thrash at ping pong apart when we come in from the outdoors.
I don't think so.
Like that. There's always been that lovely dynamic. I know that you are ex-SAS way back when in your journey to now. So I'm going to talk about that a bit. This is your clearing. Did you tell us about both clearings? You have. Sorry.
I have. Yep.
So what's brought you in your journey to now to the fresh air leadership clearing?
Right. I think it all stems back to having an idyllic childhood in Scotland. Long cycle rides with my mates, probably mum and dad not knowing where I was, and then coming back at dark, you're having had a great sort of outdoor adventure. And then joining the military, which is obviously a very experiential thing, lots of outdoors. And then in later life thinking, well, what do I really want to do with my life? And then just hearkening back to actually the joy and creativity and fun, and the relationships you have by being outdoors with people, having great conversations. So really it's rediscovering who I was as a kid, in a sense, and using that as a platform to help people today.
I love that idea of almost returning to factory default settings, if you like. You began in a clearing of the great outdoors, and then you've had a long outdoors career, and then you've come back to the outdoors of where you're from, really, at your core.
Yeah, and I think when we're children, we generally aren't captive to things like fear and we should be this or we should be that. So in a sense, we're almost at our freest as kids, depending obviously on parents, environment and all the rest of it. And in later life thinking, well, actually I've spent the last 20, 30 years in the world of should and expectation. Where is it that I feel at my freest and most joyous and actually most viable to other people by being fully me? And for me, that was rediscovering who I used to be and thinking, oh, I'll take him out of the closet again. We'll start using him again. So it's that kind of full circle bit. Absolutely.
A return, if you like, sort of true authenticity where your presence is at its best, if you like.
Yeah. And also just peeling off the masks that we unwittingly collect as we go through life, and just saying, well, actually, real me is here, and just sort of re-embracing that. Absolutely.
A lovely gesture there, the real me stretching out into the space.
Yeah, and of course that's the kind of work that you and I do, Chris. Is actually we work with people who present with issues and problems and difficulties, and we help them. We help look under their masks and say, well, actually, you can already have the answer. You already have the resources. So let's just take this stuff off and set you free. And it's a case of helping people simplify their lives, clarify their lives, and just lightening the load. So I think that's a really powerful metaphor.
It links beautifully to the idea within coaching of the tapping into one's inner genius. Your inner genius knows that you need to do something different or make new choices. But
going back to one of my sort of clearings about the sort of the energy and inspiration I get by having conversations with other people. Of course, people sometimes get that genius from connection with other people. Yes, they have an inner genius, but actually that can be amplified by saying, almost like a yes and. Yes, you are a genius, but gosh, you are more of a genius when you're with other people and feeding off each other. So it's a yes and such scenario, I think.
Which comes onto a cheesy expression, dream work makes the teamwork, or teamwork makes the dream work, if you get it the right way around.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other thing I really enjoyed in our experience of having worked together is how you rather profoundly use topography of the journey that we're undertaking in what Fresh Air Leadership does. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so what we do is essentially experiential. We try and shift people's heads, hearts, and souls. So actually, it's about moving through spaces that are inspirational and walking alongside people whose conversation will be inspirational. And part of our process, which is appreciative inquiry, is about going through a place of divergent thinking to then converge on the way ahead. And you can map the terrain that you use very choicefully by, for example, going uphill to that sort of vista or vision place, and just the act of working your way up there helps you engage in expansive thought. And once you're up there and you see the view, you then go down the other side, where you then begin to converge on the action you're going to take. So we do it very skillfully. And also things like walking through a forest, which is very constrained, can be a great place for convergent thinking. But then opening up into the sunny uplands is also another place of expansive thinking. So we're quite artful in the way we design our routes. It's not just a happy accident. We actually think about what we do.
I know exactly the escarpment you're describing climbing up. One of my most favourite places with you is the Devil's Staircase.
Exactly.
And then we emerge to what seems to be, it may not be, this is just my story of it. It's almost like the base of Ben Nevis is there to be revealed.
Yes.
It's not actually Ben Nevis, is it, that we see at the top?
No, well, you can see Ben Nevis if you look north, but I think the vista you engage with is looking down into Glencoe, and absolutely fine. But you raise an interesting point. The Devil's Staircase can strike the fear into our clients' hearts, and we have to do quite a lot of anxiety management about some of the place names that we come across. And of course, the Devil's Staircase is a bit of a pussy of a hill, as you know, and wholly doable for a wide range of folks. So it's looking after people is actually quite important. What you and I do, as you know.
And the greatest memory I will ever have, I think, is you giving me the gift of allowing me to sort of run loose at the top of the Devil's Staircase, getting the various leadership teams to shout to the mountainside, "I am Spartacus!" And it's wonderful to be in profound places, learning new stuff, and there's a sense evocation that I'll never forget in doing that.
Yeah. And I think you touched on two things. One is the joy that we as coaches bring to any intervention, but also the places we do the stuff we do are incredible and we awesome and amazing. And that is all part of the anchoring process. So when our clients have insights, they have insights in places that will stick with them forever. So that insight is anchored to that memory.
Yes.
Because one of the downsides of the work that people like us do is they do something amazing and then people go back to the workplace and the whole thing is forgotten. So for us, we add value by creating unforgettable memories so that the value or the afterburn continues well into the workplace. We don't just one-shot forgettable stuff.
And thank you for using one of my expressions back to me, the afterburn of you, which is the personal impact, Dave. I like you.
I know. I've been listening.
So into the clearing now, I'd like to introduce a tree. And in a moment, Dave, shake your tree. And by the way, thank you to inviting me to your awesome clearing, or clearings, because I know there's a whole vista of different JPEGs you could reveal before you actually take us outdoors. So we're going to shake this tree to see which apples fall out. And I want to shake this around an exercise that I have to say comes from you. And I've been very grateful to you for it. And I know that you've also written various articles about this. It's a really profound, and again, it's yours. And thank you for the gift of this. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Where before we spoke, I was able to give it back to you and say, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to take 5 minutes to think about 4 things that have truly shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that really grab your attention, and then 1 quirky or unusual fact about you, Mr. Dave Stewart, that we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us. So you don't have to give us the whole thing, but imagine your tree is being shaken using a storytelling archetype within this clearing, and your apples are going to fall out. Which one of those components would you most like to start talking about?
Well, I'm just going to wind it back one second. The reason we do this, Chris, if you remember, is it allows people to tell their story. And of course, the problem with the workplace is that people never get the chance to tell their story. They're always behaving into a job spec or a job role or some sort of expectation, and they leave most of their whole selves back at home. So this is a way of bringing people into each other's consciousness in a way that really develops trust and self-awareness. You know, the whole point of disclosure is around connecting with each other. So that's the kind of genesis of why we do it. As to my apples, one of my apples is, you know, shaping influences, which I've kind of talked about already, is having that idyllic outdoor Scottish childhood. Another apple was the early death of my father, and the sense of stepping up and being responsible, accountable, and getting stuff done. So those were two important apples in terms of shaping me. The third apple is actually all the high-performing and shit teams that I've been part of. And it's made me really curious about what goes into making a team really work. And of course, that's what we brought into the Fresh Air Leadership Company, is actually how do collections of people operate together. The things that really make me come alive is having awesome conversation with somebody awesome. So I include you in that.
You cracked up just at that particular moment. So sorry, just go.
So when we talk about some of the things that really make me come alive, it's actually having an awesome conversation with an awesome person. So I include you in that, Chris, but just not today. Ha ha, boom, boom. But really doing what I do is something that makes me come alive. So it's walking with people, talking with people, moving through amazing countryside. I get a buzz out showing people Scotland, because Scotland is just awesome, and I just want to share that. So there's something very deeply proud that makes me come alive when I'm able to share that. Ways to get my attention. One really is just say, look, Dave, can you give me some advice, or can you help me? And I think that's almost like a general human thing. I think generally people are open to helping one another, but not everyone feels comfortable about stepping forward and say, look, I need a bit of help. But that's one way to get my attention. And one thing you probably couldn't guess about me was in my military days, dressing up in all my black, scuba gear and all the rest of it. We were going to do a parachute jump into the sea in preparation for something, and the RAF jumped us out too early, and we all landed on Studland Bay nudist beach in our frogman's kit, nowhere near the water, and everybody involved was a little bit embarrassed. So that was quite fun. So
and it was pushing too many clothes on. There you are in full frogman outfit.
Well, this was it. We had too many clothes on.
So were you jumping out with your flippers attached, or?
I can't remember if they were, or whether we had them strapped onto us. I can't remember the detail, but yeah.
What a beautiful story. Sorry, I interrupted you there because I got excited.
No, that was it. It was just one of those crazy moments. And of course, the closer you get to the ground, you realise we're going to miss the sea.
And just talk us through how far did you miss the target by?
Oh, by about 20, 30 meters. Because when you jump out of the plane, you can steer your parachute to a certain amount, but there comes a point where actually you're going down quicker than you're going sideways, and you're going to hit what you're going to hit. In this case, it wasn't water. So
there's a beautiful metaphor in that about how the idea of trying to get to a destination, it doesn't always work out as you think. No,
exactly. And you've got to just make what you've got of it. And of course, what I now have is a bit of a story, haven't I? If it had gone perfectly, it'd have been unremarkable.
I have to say, in all our Fresh Air Leadership journeys together, just to be clear, for those of you who just tuned into what you need is a damn good listening to, we've never lost anybody, and we've always ended up exactly where we should be.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. Thank you for that. But what we have had is we've had several clients turn up with a pair of fantastic boots, or seem to be fantastic boots, but the soles have fallen off them. And we've had to do some pretty urgent first aid to keep people mobile.
And by the way, I was walking alongside the particular individual whose soul did become detached. And there was just a brilliant metaphor about, so your soul's become a bit. What's that telling us? I mean, I'm joking. We laughed about it, but they.
No, but it's happened on another occasion, and we fixed it by putting surgical gloves over the toe of the boot and the sole, and wrapping tape just to keep things on. It looked like a pair of walking udders. It wasn't good.
You've just reminded me, one of my first cabaret acts ever was a pair of marigold glove on my head, and then a chicken was born. But that's for another podcast. So back to the clearing. Thank you for that lovely expansive answer on you. And by the way, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is the most enjoyable and profound disclosure exercise that I've discovered. And thanks to your, introducing me to it, I find I use it everywhere because it's just a beautiful way to get people to go to the next layer of true disclosure as to who they truly are. Yeah. So, if anything, take anything from this call, try that exercise out, as we both agreed. It's a great thing. Yeah. So back to our clearing. And finally, I'd like to invite you to contemplate this cake, Mr. Dave Stewart. So I'm going to give you a cake, and you're now going to be allowed to put the cherry on the cake. What's the alchemy or the gold that that you like to bring when you're in your zone as Fresh Air Leadership MD and you're on the mountainside and you're weaving your magic? What's the thing you most often like to tell people?
Oh, what to tell them?
Or instruct them upon or share with them?
I think it's an invitation into honesty. And I mean, as you know, we curate a really amazing experience, so it's logistically sort of perfect. We choose the most amazing spaces. We've got really exceptional and unconventional coach facilitators. We've got these amazingly deep processes. And we put these people into this, essentially a creative sandpit. And the thing I bring, and I think you bring also, is we just say to people, look, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Be real, be yourself, engage with this. You're being cared for and supported by lots of amazing people. Just be yourself, and let's discover what that means for you in your role as a person, as a business person, whatever it is. Let's just discover who you are. You're in a safe space.
Beautiful. So you have been listening to What You Need Is a Damn Good Listening To with me, Chris Grimes, and Dave Stewart from the Fresh Air Leadership Company. Hurrah! We can give each other a round of applause now. Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Good night.